As part of Severe Weather Awareness Week. The city of Joplin votes to lift restrictions on mass gatherings, while one business owner says she is hopeful for a positive change. And AAA celebrates the 100th anniversary of its school safety patrol.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
That's the sound many of us heard at 10 a.m. this morning. Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas all held statewide tornado drills today. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Now, the good thing, there's no severe weather in our forecast. Let's go to Michael Hayslip in the KOAM Weather Center with what we can expect instead.
You know, Tanya, in the past couple of years, we have had those days where when we do the statewide drills that we've had to back them off because we've even had thunderstorm activity, if not rain. The reason why today is perfect is because you want to be able to, number one, test your infrastructure. Number two, make sure you get your emergency kits ready. Number three, involve the kids as well at school. And when you have a day like this, that's exactly what you can do without anybody having any fears of anything coming. Already pushing up to 56 degrees from the noon hour as we take a live look outside the mothership. 55 in Miami, 55 in Lamar. Let's go 58 already in Chanute. Now the Skywatch Storm Tracker has been very, very clear, and that's because this little band that was down to the southeast right there managed to stay through north central Arkansas. And really our wind chills already pushing up close to 60 degrees in Nevada and Stockton. We don't want that, that's for sure. Now this thunderstorm activity that we're seeing down through the Gulf and headed to the mid-Atlantic, those are the people that actually, double checked on this, had to cancel their tornado drills. Contiguous 48, it was kind of a, you know, as far as time goes, could be different wherever your 10 o'clock is, but time-wise, they had to cancel these down here because of their thunderstorm activity. I know I received multiple phone calls today about people that said, I didn't hear the sirens, I don't know where they were. I've checked with multiple cities, multiple counties, and yes, as far as what I know, as far as the 4 states goes, everybody was able to check those, and without a doubt, everything looking very good. Now, after our drill, we've got 60s through the weekend, but this is severe weather season. So if you got your phone on you, chances are these days you probably do. All you have to do is open up your camera right now and just take a picture of the QR code that's going to pop up right there. You can do it from the comfort of your recliner, your couch. You don't even have to get up close to your TV. You take a picture of that. It's going to take you to the Skywatch weather app. That is your best source of 4-state weather as we head through the spring seasons. Tanya, coming up here in just a little bit, we'll kind of break down where the thunderstorm activity is, and also too, we've got a system working out of the Pacific, not the Gulf, the Pacific, that's going to give us rain on Friday.
All right, interesting to hear about that. Thanks, Michael. Well, Joplin City Council met last night, and the top thing on the agenda, the city's COVID response and recovery plan. The council decided to take action on 2 parts of the plan. First, voting to remove the 250 mass gathering restriction, and 2, removing the social distancing requirement for all restaurants and churches in the city. Now, the mass gathering restriction is on the minds of many event center owners in the city. KOAM's Chris Warner spoke with one of them about how the pandemic and restrictions have impacted them.
Been in phase 2, step 4 of the plan. That step removes occupancy restrictions for all businesses, but still requires social distancing to be in place. It also places a cap on mass gatherings at 250. It's that restriction that's made it hard for businesses, specifically event planners like Athena Events, to get by. Athena's president, Fallon Annawalt, says she's had to get creative to survive.
I've been helping with a lot of the fundraisers in town. They've been doing virtual auctions or like maybe a semi-virtual event to kind of get around some of those restrictions. You know, we've seen weddings happen and they just cut their guest list. We've seen, you know, people pause and postpone because they can't have as many people as they wished.
Annawalt says she's hopeful for this upcoming year.
Luckily, you know, we've already seen a pent-up demand somewhat for this year, so that's nice that I think we're going to be able to recover some of that loss from 2020.
Annawalt says the council's decision could have a major impact on that demand and the potential customers.
Because they see, you know, that they're making changes and they feel like this is the best interest for the community. So it also just opens people's mind up to be open to the idea of even having maybe even a small gathering.
Not everyone in Joplin thinks it's a good idea to lift the restrictions. One resident we spoke with says he feels the city should have waited an additional 45 days at minimum to allow more of the population to receive their vaccination, particularly with students returning to full-time school. In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Doses of America's newest coronavirus vaccine begin to arrive at distribution locations across the country. About 4 million Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccines will be sent out. 2.8 million of them are going to states, 800,000 to pharmacies. Despite optimism across the country, the head of the CDC is warning us not to relax, especially with more contagious COVID variants threatening Americans. An American fashion student in Paris got stranded during the pandemic, but found his style through his struggle. Now he's stepping into an unusual edition of French Fashion Week. CBS's Ian Lee reports.
French fashion is typically avant-garde, belonging more on the runway than on Main Street. But this year, American designer James Giltner found inspiration in something we can all relate to.
I would definitely not have this collection now if it wasn't for COVID in the weirdest way possible, but that's the truth of it.
It started during lockdown when the 23-year-old student picked up a hobby.
So I was stuck in my apartment in Paris alone for months on end, and all I did was knit. And all of these techniques that came out of this project were developed during that time. So.
What he knitted isn't your grandmother's sweater. Call his collection Corona Couture.
No matter how chic we try to be and no matter how glamorous we are, we're always going to have, viruses running us one way or another.
He's dedicated his designs to what he calls the COVID generation. His teacher says to be young and creative in a pandemic is difficult, but despite the crisis, students like James rose above it. A lesson for all of us, that resilience never goes out of style. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
10 days of high-end catwalk shows usually held in the French capital this month are being streamed online because of the pandemic. New York and Milan will also present their events virtually. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon.
A life-saving school program celebrates a milestone. I'm Naomi Ruckham with how students are making a difference as safety patrollers.
And later, we're making a Boston cream pie poke cake in the Mr. Food Test kitchen. If you've noticed children running safety patrols around your local schools, you may be looking at a program now celebrating 100 years of service. Naomi Ruckham reports on how AAA's School Safety Patrol is about safer streets and creating leaders.
For Deborah Carlino's students in South San Francisco, some of the most important lessons happen outside the school.
They are in charge of helping children and parents safely cross the street. As soon as they put those uniforms on, they just stand taller and they have such pride and dignity.
The uniforms are part of AAA's School Safety Patrol. The program that started 100 years ago is now in 35,000 schools across the country, staffed by nearly 680,000 patrollers. While much of their work is on hold during the pandemic, AAA says the program has helped reduce student pedestrian deaths by 24% since 2010. Carlino believes the program transforms her students, leading to better attendance, better grades, and more leadership.
It makes the children change on a cellular level. We want the children to grow up to be strong leaders, to care about their communities.
In Beaver Dam, Virginia, 12-year-old K.O. Cook is a fourth-generation safety patroller.
My great-grandfather he was a safety patrol, and then it was my grandfather and my uncle, and then now it's me.
He won a merit award for his work, and his mother says the experience has helped him shine.
Watching him be this shy, quiet little boy in third grade to growing into this leader in just 2 years has been amazing to see.
A lesson in the way helping others can also help ourselves. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
During the pandemic, schools have created ways for safety patrollers to participate virtually, so they still get an opportunity to wear their uniforms. Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
Today, we're poking holes in a recipe that dates back to the mid-1800s. So grab your wooden spoon, and let's have some fun.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete Better Than Cream Pie forecast.
Once again, those sirens that you may have heard around 10 o'clock this morning, remember, that was just a drill to make sure our infrastructure in the 4 states is prepared for severe weather as we approach the spring, as it is Severe Weather Preparedness Week from the National Weather Service. So there's nothing to be afraid about because we've got very clear skies around the entire 4 states. I did find this interesting though, and I talked to a number of our counties just because those of you that may have been prepared to hear them at 10 a.m. said, I didn't know where they were. Sometimes it's a little bit limited in places because they want to make sure that the older ones are tested. That's the key thing. They're not going to go citywide. Some cities certainly did, and I understand that. I just want you to know that everybody that I talked to, as far as our 4 states go, they did participate. And so I apologize to all of you who let me know that you didn't hear them, and I wanted you to know that I reached out to counties and states to make sure that they did participate. And we kind of lucked out because these states throughout the Gulf up to the Mid-Atlantic, they had to cancel theirs for today. It's a contiguous 48. Hawaii and Alaska, they're actually going to do theirs a little bit later. Of course, they don't have a whole lot of tornado activity. And so they kind of back off on that as far as their storm sirens go. But yeah, down around the Gulf, they just kind of had to back off on it. And we've had to do that for the past couple of years because when you get anything of inclement weather, even a little bit of rain, you don't want to scare people. But I mean, we're talking about beautiful blue skies for us here in the 4 states as we push up to 56 degrees here at the noon hour outside the mothership. Do want to be very careful though. Once again, we don't have any watches or warnings, but I've been saying this all throughout, seemingly through February, now in the beginning of March. Don't burn any brush. This humidity right here, we're not done yet. We'll actually fall into the low 30s, if not the high 20s. And so even with a light southerly wind and warm temperatures, that's going to be ripe conditions for fires to spread quickly. Wind hasn't been too bad. A little bit of an increase. We're up to 18 miles per hour in Chanute and Nevada, but on the positive side of it, it does bring us the warmer temperatures and very clear skies from the Skywatch Storm Tracker. Earlier this morning, we were seeing if we were going to get clipped by a little band on the far northern edge of that Gulf storm, but it wanted to stay through north central Arkansas and now is pushing off into the Boot Heel just about on the other side of the Mississippi. And so when we talk about our thunderstorm outlook for today, we can just keep that down to the deep southeastern portion of the United States. We're going to pay attention to what's going to eventually develop on our west coast. No need for the next several days to worry about it. But Friday, that will be our low pressure system that develops. Highs in the high 50s today, overnight. Nice southerly breeze actually puts us in the 40s, and future track is of no consequence. So I want to go ahead and do our national picture here, and we'll kind of do a long form. And there it is right there. Watch this thing develop off the coast. Looked like it was going to come a little bit north of San Francisco, but instead it's going to roll right over LA. It's going to turn into snow over the Rockies, but come back into rain after it gets over the Rockies, and then there it is for us on Friday. Not looking at anything severe, by the way, and temperatures really not going to decrease too much because we'll be right back into the 60s for Saturday and Sunday. Tanya, one thing I want to point out, Skywatch weather app as we head into severe weather season. All you have to do, like I said, if you got your phone, you don't even have to walk up to your TV. You snap that picture right now. That's QR code that's going to take you to the Skywatch weather app, downloadable for all your mobile devices. It's absolutely free. There's no reason to worry about having to pay anything for it. And with the wonderful people that we have, with Doug Hetty and Nick Kelly keeping us informed, because most of our severe weather does happen during the afternoon and evening hours, and the intelligence that those two bring to our stations, you're not going to want to miss out on it because geographically you can pinpoint your location and also to keep up with your friends and loved ones.
All right, it's a good thing to have that app. I know I got a severe weather alert on my phone. Where I was at, I didn't hear the sirens because I was inside, but I got it.
But it went off, didn't
phone.
it? Yeah,
yes.
It did. Mm-hmm. I knew when it was 10 o'clock high, when that phone went off, I looked at it and I went,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Sure thing. All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Staff Sergeant Jesse Collins in the U.S. Army. The soldier hails from Joplin, Missouri. He served from 1940 to 1947, a veteran of World War II. To Staff Sergeant Jesse Collins, we thank you, our four-state hero. We're using a modern-day technique to serve up a classic dessert, and no doubt you're gonna love it. Howard shows us how to make a Boston cream pie poke cake in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
You know, I love it when we get to take a classic recipe like Boston cream pie, which was created in Boston in the mid-1800s, and give it a twist. Did you know that Boston cream pie isn't even a pie? It's 2 layers of sponge cake separated by vanilla custard and topped with a chocolate fondant. To make it weeknight friendly, we're taking everything we love about it and turning it into a poke cake. After baking and cooling a yellow cake mix in a 9x13 pan, we take the handle of a wooden spoon and poke holes all over it. Then we fill those holes with vanilla pudding, which ensures that every bite is super moist. After this chills, we'll swirl the top with a homemade chocolate glaze that's decadently delicious. Now, before digging in, we let it cool one more time to make sure everything sets up. And after your first forkful, you'll know why this cake has stood the test of time. To get the recipe for what we call Boston cream pie poke cake, simply visit our website. I'm Howard with Kelly in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found an up-to-date classic way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
I've already ate half the cake. Here's a look at our four-state market prices.
Sunny skies and up into the mid-50s. Tomorrow and Thursday, how about mid-60s? Then, yeah, a little Pacific moisture brings us rain on Friday, but a beautiful weekend. What a great start to March.
We have coming up tonight at 5.
A lot coming up at 5. For starters, small businesses are closing by the thousands. In some communities, friends, customers, even complete strangers are stepping up to help. Plus, a number of local Walmarts convert to full self-checkout, but that could pose a problem for some customers. We'll explain. And it's Severe Weather Awareness Week as Joplin schools remind students about procedures and how to prepare for uncertain weather conditions. Hope to join us at 5.
All right, thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.